Hi, Jussi. Hi, Joha. I'm very happy to have you here today and get to know more about where you come from and what is your why. Why does Topaasia exist? What was kind of like the first initial idea that you had, and how has it changed over the last 11 years? And yeah, so who of you would like to kind of like start? What was kind of like the motivational driver when you, or would you first like to say something about Topasia today, and then kind of like we look at where did you start and how did it happen?
I think it's the good this kind of the what was the motivation 10 years
Yep.
ago and how it changed now also, because I think like me and Juha have a mutual background in the sense that Juha used to be my teacher in the in the mikä se sana on?
Yes, university.
Yep.
Yeah, the special unit of in entrepreneurship where actually Jussi was studying and I was acting as a coach or lecturer there, and it was the kind of time when Jussi had this idea of the dialogue game, because the kind of learning model was very much about teamwork and dialogue within the teams, and the role of the teacher or the coach was more like a coach, kind of a side person, and the real actors were the entrepreneurs, which was of course supporting entrepreneurial learning. But I guess maybe Jussi can tell about how this is a kind of a background.
Yeah, I think the background in that sense is like where the motivation grew, because the place of study was so that we had these dialogue training sessions, 4-hour dialogue training sessions, and really low hierarchy. It's more about you build your own way and this kind of this kind of thinking, and it of course affected me a lot in that sense. And there was this certain kind of dialogue method I would say that was more like a method, not in a philosophical manner, but more like a method manner, the way I understood it, and I saw it exciting in that sense. So that kind of a certain kind of idea about, or ideal about dialogue was kind of the one motivation, that this is quite interesting approach, how we communicate together as a team or as a group, and then it was more about combining that to this kind of game approach, which is kind of that you can, of course, I understand that you cannot package that kind of things, but the idea was then to package that kind of way of having dialogue. The game was the way to create the package that you can use, and then more the ideal was this kind of dialogue, more like a method-wise, which I don't think like that, but it was more like how you have certain kind of dialogue.
Yeah.
And me and Ville then, who is the co-founder of the company, then started making this kind of games, Topaasia games, where was the certain idea of dialogue, which a big background might be this kind of Isaac's dialogue and the art of thinking together, one book kind of idea. That was it then, which is more I see now as a way to do like a thing. And then the game was just to doing an experiment if the combining game and this kind of dialogue approach works. That was the core idea. So it wasn't that larger in a sense.
Yeah. Okay.
But then we started experimenting and doing different kind of versions, hundreds of different versions on the game. And the big idea was that it's was it done as a package is that so because everyone can use a package. So the point is that if we could able to put in a package something that anyone could use, and in this case it was more about this certain kind of way of having dialogue around topics, and the first topics were about teamwork and this kind of. So it was quite strict.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as a lot of starts are, isn't it? Kind of like you start with an idea, you start to test it, and nobody expects that it's growing immediately. But it's quite interesting. So kind of like you saw an opportunity, you see, if I understood you correctly, and you were really fascinated by bringing kind of like a dialogue method to, let's say, almost everybody. So with the packages, it's easy to spread it and make people test.
Yeah, that was the original idea, and that's what I thought then.
Yeah.
Yes, and then of course, because it's neat, and when it's packaged, you can actually see, you can observe how people use it, and you can see if the guesses you make work and what happened. And I think that has been, of course, really important, because if you don't do the observation, you cannot make the changes.
Yeah.
And we did hundreds of those.
I'm sure. Juha, was this also the time where you were already on board?
Yes, I guess I tested one of the first, physical card versions. It was a kind of a board game in the beginning. I guess it was 12 years ago. And of course, that was a long way. Of course, I have been kind of on board. And of course, now I've been also working with some new decks now with inside Topaasia and also with the international project. And now it's also digital, I guess mainly digital, the model that you can kind of play remotely. And it still works beautifully. And kind of, but the first was 2013 when we played with the board game version.
So what was the reason that you made it digital? Was it due to Corona, or did you start much earlier because you saw that it's helpful, especially if you have international projects?
I think it has more in a organic manner happened, like because it was a really long time we just had the physical game, and we didn't have any funding, these kind of investors in the background. And I think me and Ville, who is the co-founder, we also wanted to be sure that the method and the tool works, because we are not programmers and so on. So it was really important to see it work, so that it isn't just an empty kind of why it works, how it works, and what can we get rid of from the game and the method, that what is actually kind of that sticks. So it took many years to make the game method so that what we can get rid of, and that is much cheaper to do in a analog format than in a digital format. But then we started getting pictures from clients that use the game, the physical game, so that they use the kind of the webcam and these kind of, they were in different locations, and we got the story that okay, maybe now we should do a digital version. This was before COVID, but it always needed to come. It starts from kind of we get the story to do something from client. That was kind of there were, even though there would have been ideas that this should be done this by this, by this and this, but when it comes from the client, you can build the story from that. Then it's more, it sticks.
Yeah,
It has more meaning. So through that we started getting the funding, and when few old clients did an investment, and then we started creating the digital format before the COVID. And actually, and now it's interesting because then it started from really small, and now when we and Juha, we work on the international project. Now we also try to build. We have enough knowledge to like what sticks and what is good, so we can with Juha together create this kind of what was the word? This serious game, Topaasia serious game. Master certification kind of idea, because there is enough stuff is a silly word, but there is enough meaning. We know what works and what doesn't work, so that's also exciting that we are building with Juha now.
And
because
of course
the idea has
now,
spread more and it's
Yeah.
widened and deepened the understanding of what happens and why.
and what has been also interesting that Topaasia has worked with the university, and so there is also scientific research on how it works, which is very interesting and for many people important to know that okay, this is why does it work. So of course, usually in the domain of serious game, of course, people are interested about the benefits. Why do we play? So that is about the results. That usually the kind of elements in the serious game should be such that okay, it's of course make the dialogue effective or efficient, but also fun at the same time. So you cannot really know what comes out of that. It's a kind of a magic circle, and that's quite interesting. Also, especially remotely, which is usually quite hard to kind of get quality dialogue going on.
Yes.
And also important has been when there was the phase of the physical game and then came the digital game, because before starting with the digital game, we need to know that we don't change things at things that want. So it was important that we did multiple years of research collaboration with the systems intelligence research group from Aalto University with Professor Raimo Hämäläinen and Professor Esa Saarisen's research group.
Yeah.
And that also came kind of organic manner. So that's why I start to be quite confident, because many reasonings why things work has come built in an organic manner, not from just only from my head or someone's head.
Yeah. And I think the scientific research and the collaboration with the university really gives credibility in a lot of countries. I can speak for the German and the China or Asia market, where if it's just an idea of an individual, it might be attractive, but then they start to doubt that there is no basis for and that it's just a very good idea. But once they hear that there is a theory behind it, has been researched why and how it works, you get a lot of credibility in these markets.
And the way that has changed when in this sense that what has changed in the thinking that I think also what changed when we changed from analog to digital is that Juha, this might be a silly way to say it, but in analogical world it wasn't that easy to game master and someone cannot control things as much, which is good. It gives more room for creativity. But in the digital format, as we know, when it's digital, it's more controllable, and this changed something. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it changed. The kind of something changed in the how you use the tool and how you can use the tool. Also the scalability and these kind of things. But what has changed in the thinking, if we think that it started from a small one kind of way to approach dialogue, now it's more about what is like that was important. But now I think what I see is important that because we as human beings, we have we use language, we build meanings, and we cannot get rid of that. That is kind of what is, and then the language and the meanings are built in social interaction, which is also what happens. And then when we are in the social interaction, it's more you have different intentions or in interests. What is it intention? I think it's intention that you can have when you use this kind of tool to guide dialogue. So now I see it's more relevant that you are really understand what is the intentions, why you do it, and everyone who participate also understand it. The intention is more whatever it is, but it's that is clear. For example, that is the intention more to control some kind of discussion in a more focused area, or is it more to generate better understanding, or is it to form critical discussion? These are different ways of using it. And from thinking from 10 years ago, I, at least as an individual, had only one kind of this more ideal thing thinking. But now I think more wisely, and in that sense, more serious manner. If I can explain myself. Johan, did I explain myself? What do you think?
Yes. And I think what kind of comes into my mind from that is that what is important to kind of know about Topaasia, that you can customize or edit the contents, which means that if you have a topic in mind that is important in your organization, you can totally create that game using the game mechanics that are there to give people inspiration to the dialogue. And that is one quite important. So it's not a kind of a fixed mindset, or because you can really work in the organizations to create a game that works to inspire the dialogue.
Yeah, in that sense, like that it's not only about thinking about a teamwork, making better teamwork, but the intention can be that forming better understanding about, for example, some strategy, some team around strategy.
Yeah, I think that makes it really, really interesting for also big companies that are spread over the globe. If you want to kind of like set a new topic, or if you want the people to kind of like have more open dialogues and maybe even more critical dialogues, that makes it very interesting, because if I'm a client of you, I can use kind of like my corporate words. If it's my own game, so it's not something that I copy and it might somehow fit or not, but I can make it very specific to my backgrounds and the needs that are there.
Yes, you can. We were talking about the Finnish culture, that okay, we are quite open in when we are having our dialogue in where we come from, but understanding the kind of a different cultures, you can kind of create a culture fit for your culture that is kind of that people feel comfortable of having dialogue, because the people who are in the organization, they can create their own game.
Yeah, and I think that this is also we talk a lot about innovation, and that it's sometimes hard for companies to kind of like stay innovative. But with Topaasia, my experience is that as it's a creative game, and once they start with this creative approach and spread it, that there is also kind of like an interest, or maybe even a more playful approach. And I really have to say, I mean, I'm Swiss from my background and I live in Germany, and these are two very serious markets. We don't play games in business settings. But there is this wish for gamification when I talk to my clients. And at the same time, there is a little bit of this fear that it's too light, kind of like that it's not really something that is probably they're afraid that people might take it too easy if they hear that it's a game. And sometimes I even think about, is it good to talk about games instead of method or tool or whatever? But I think through Topaasia, this more light approach can also get into more heavy or serious cultures.
Yeah, and there's an opportunity that there might be really serious discussions, but I think it comes from designing the whole game, that it fits the words and the language that that is relevant to be discussed, and the perspectives are chosen based on what is the intention, and the ending kind of the crystallization is also, everything is designed based on what is the intention and what you want to happen. So it's a good experience for everyone, for the participants who play the game in different groups, and then for also the kind of the owner of the project or the discussions regarding what kind of data is interesting from the discussion and these kind of things.
Yes, and I think what you kind of Daniela said about the kind of a classical paradox between the serious and the fun, or the serious and the light, and that is something that we have this kind of a, I don't know, even a taboo in the working life. I guess all around the globe, I've been interviewing people, but that the playing or the fun doesn't belong to working, because that is a kind of the problem. But I guess the idea here is to kind of trying to bring, because in serious game it's a bit different. We try to use games to solve serious problems, and it doesn't matter, or usually it doesn't hurt if you're having a bit of fun in the same time. And usually in working life we have different forms of fun, but usually playing games, it's a bit of a a risk, so to speak. So I guess in Topaasia it usually works. So I really encourage people to test it, because it's really a having a conversation or dialogue, but you having these cards which kind of inspire the dialogue. So I guess that's worth the risk.
It definitely is in my experience, and I really experience it when at the first time the customers are still kind of like a bit nervous. Does it work? And how open do I have to be? But then when the game starts, I often have experienced that they kind of like really get hooked by what is happening on my mobile phone, what is happening on the screen, and the discussion. And all of a sudden they kind of like forget that they're in a game.
Yeah.
And I have really experienced with groups from where it wasn't in my webinars, it's not one company, it's different companies. And even there, an openness emerges to talk about what is really heavy loaded, but in such a more kind of like a focused way, because the cards kind of like focus you somehow. You don't just talk about it in a moral way or in a defiant way, but it's kind of like really focused on what is written on the different cards.
It's like the Professor J. Thomas Harviani said in the webinar about serious game and Topaasia, is that the cards and the language and the that is written in the cards give the alibi for the bringing up the topics, and the whole context, the whole game setup gives the alibi for that.
Yes.
But in that sense, I come back to like it's important to have the like thinking about the why, that everyone knows, are clear why the game is being used and for what and why we are doing this. Because then anyways this will happen, that you get kind of in the like Juha said, magic circle. You easily get in the game flow.
So it kind of makes the serious discussions, and I do not mean the serious or the serious as a serious, but real life problems, which we always have. I need to kind of discuss on different topics, so it makes it a bit more light, but it doesn't mean that it's not effective or we don't have results.
No, it's really this, what you just mentioned. It's about real life topic and not about something that is not of interest to anybody. Jussi, what I wanted to pick up is a word that you said, data. And we often read about big data. Companies are talking about how can we collect big data. So would you call Topaasia also kind of like, because now it's a digital way, how can customers kind of like collect big data, and what kind of big data is it?
Yeah, I think it's now we are actually experimenting a lot with AI also, that how can the customers use AI to go to summarize the data and get things out of the data, because it's more about, it comes to back to why the game is being used. For example, if it's decided that in teams or in groups there, it's good to have discussions around strategy or a certain topic, that there is a need for these kind of discussions for reason X, Y, Z. And then with Topaasia, you have a format that is also scalable. So you are sure that it happens in the group number 1, but it's also group number 1000. And then all of the data from these discussions is also stored, not in like in a way that Juha, you said this, Daniela, you said that, but in a way that what is meaningful, what comes up in the discussions, and what is chosen more relevant than other in the discussions, and why.
Yeah.
And then what also in the end, what is decided to do around the topic or some other kind of crystallization. So this is something that is you can use as a data. So you have one focused need for some kind of discussion, and then you build the game, and that can be scaled in the organization, the groups. Did I answer your question?
Yes, and I would like to ask Juha, because you're an anthropologist. I mean, this is a way to collect data, which for individuals is almost not possible, isn't it? Kind of like.
Yes, of course. Now, if I talk as an anthropologist, I think about the kind of dialogue more like, or the interaction between the people and the kind of cultural practices, for example, that how is it done differently when we use serious games? And I guess then I'm really interested in play, and why do we play usually? That's something that not only humans do, but also animals do play, and we cannot really explain that. But we can explain the functions of play, and of course they can be strategizing that we are learning with play. But usually, I guess what is most meaningful when we play is that we connect with each other emotionally, and also when we don't know what to do, we should play. So there are a lot of functions, but it's really primitive function that why we play, and I guess Topaasia brings that to us. So I guess there is a book which is called Homo Ludens, which actually claims that we are actually playing individuals. So we actually definitely should play more in working life.
And it's an interesting combination that you just gave me, because we live in very disruptive and insecure times, geopolitically, and there is also a lot of competition between companies, and sometimes a lot of hectic. And you just said that if we don't know what to do, we should play a game. And this is maybe good if we don't know, or if we are faced with a lot of unknown things. We could take the topic and just discuss it in such a structured way that Topaasia delivers, that at the end we have an outcome, and we don't feel just kind of like in fear of whatever might happen, but all of a sudden there is a topic we focus on that gives us like a guidance.
Yeah,
and in data-wise, you could compare these kind of outcomes. What kind of different outcomes come from this part? What comes from here? Because then you can see what different outcomes comes out of the same kind of structure and the same content.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for this insight into who you are and what Topaasia can and does deliver, and also on the why and how it changed over all these years. I'm very happy to have the chance to collaborate with you, and let's see how we can spread Topaasia throughout Europe and maybe even more abroad than that.
Yes, looking forward to that and really hoping that. Thank you, Daniela.
Thank you, Daniela.
Thank you too.